so I try to create little events to extend that life of the project. And so I'll
Yeah.
do sort of like the same sort of art gallery feeling maybe in New York with a whole bunch of activations, whether it's virtual reality or boards from the event that are painted by artists. So they're there in that space. Then that'll move to a theatrical run. And then I'll move to the home move or online side of it to just try to give it a little bit of extended life.
Yeah.
And that side of it, I now like really sort of crave that sort of like theatrical experiences where we sort of sit in a theater and all share a moment.
I'm a kid of champions. We love those Aussie girls. I wanna be. I'm busting.
So I'd like to welcome our new guest, Mr. Taylor Steele. We've been filmmakers for, gosh, it's got to be over 3 decades now, I think, right?
Yeah, my
Yes.
first film came out in '91, so it's a little while now.
Yes.
It's too long.
Why don't you introduce yourself? Who are we talking to today?
Introduce myself. Yeah, I'm Taylor
Yeah.
Steele. I'm a surf filmmaker for a long time, and now doing a whole bunch of different projects from National Geographics to Tequila Company.
Nice.
Oh,
Bring us
shit.
back to 1991, and let's go back a couple of decades. How did you get into surf filmmaking?
Yeah, I started making surf films when I was probably 12 years old. My parents bought a video camera, and I would just take turns, do like 30 minutes each, and we would just rotate with 2 other friends and just film each other's waves. And then at the end of the day, I was in charge of editing it and making something from that footage. And I just loved that, just creating stuff. And so it was fun just to put those together and put it with the soundtracks from like whatever was in the 80s. And I would just like edit some of those things with all of us. And from there, we were just filming down in my local break, Seaside, and Rob Machado started showing up. And I started filming him when he was probably 11.
Tell
And
people that live in different parts of the world.
Amazon hates this, but there's nothing they can do to stop.
Sorry.
Oh, geez, we got blown out. Hey, I got
quick ad break.
let me ask you a dumb question. So did you actually grow up in like South County down that way? Like,
Yeah, I grew up down in Encinitas area in northern San Diego, and Seaside's based in that area, and Rob Machado grew up there, and some other pro surfers. But yeah,
Well,
that's where I grew up.
the reason I asked, and I'm a little like, I don't know, out of touch on some of the history, but like, you and John had early ties, and Wooly and everybody in the early game of snowboarding and surfing, obviously. And my first ties into the industry was through Sonny Miller. And I know Sonny Miller, Jim Alisi, and all those guys grew up in that area. Do you obviously probably know Sonny, or did know Sonny or whatever?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah. Sonny Miller hung out with like the group right before my generation with the Brad Gerlachs and John Shamuka and some of these crew like right before. So I would see them around. Back then, it was sort of a weird space where, there wasn't a whole bunch of interactions with the filmmakers. You were sort of off on your own program with your own crew, and you weren't really running into the same parties unless it was like Surfer Pool or something like that. And but later, years down the road, became good friends with Sonny and really, all of that older generation really became good friends with him, like Gerlach and all them. But in the early days, it was sort of a weird competitive thing. Like my crew was sort of knocked down for being too weak and flicky and sort of aerial guys versus the power surfers of the previous generation. And so there's a lot of negative connotations on them. And then there's also negative connotations on me because I was shooting video compared to the film that other people were shooting. And so we all had a little bit of a chip on our shoulders against those sort of like complaints about us. And so it made us more determined and a little bit more in our own bubbles in that way.
Yeah. Well, I guess it kind of makes sense because like the earlier Sonny Miller like snowboard kind of days where I kind of knew him was when John and was doing the snowboard films, and then kind of like when we went into the Crusty is kind of like your wave of where you became like the Crusty of surfing, kind of, in to put it weird, from my
if I can back up into that,
yeah.
you're about 91, and in 1990, I was just getting out of college, and I was put with a kid named Kelly Slater, and I ended up making the Kelly Slater in black and white movie. But then after that came out, I think you kind of took the reins from there in the surfing industry and made your Momentum series, where I went off and made my Creatures of Habit series. What did you think of when I came out with, not me, but Quicksilver came out with Kelly Slater in black and white? Was that a inspiration, or you were kind of already on that momentum? No pun intended.
No.
All pun intended. Yeah.
That was my senior year in high school when that came out, and that was
I was
a big
just getting out of
deal.
college, so that's our difference of age right there.
Yeah. And that was a big deal in the surfing world, at least in my circles. And that movie was quoted like on a daily of Star Trunks, and it's the morning of the quarterfinals, and all these sort of like little taglines from Kelly's interviews during that film. It was a big deal.
Do you like it?
Yeah, all the like that movie's iconic, and it didn't necessarily shape the movie that I made. I would say like the Wave Warriors had a bigger influence on my style of films, or even
he's talking about Herbie Fletcher and Wave Warriors. Yes.
Yeah, the Herbie Fletcher Wave Warriors, Brian Bleak films.
Brian.
Those ones had like a more segment based that I sort of like, went in that same sort of genre, but it really sort of validated that one, my friend who I was going to be working with and was starting to already film, Kelly Slater, was, the man after that film. It sort of like elevated his profile by 10. And then two, it was sort of like validation of video being used and sort of lo-fi sort of filmmaking, style done right. That was also a huge validation. So it inspired me, but it also kept me on my track of like, okay, this is the way that I'm going to go. And it sort of like, it helped springload the whole thing.
You mentioned something about film and Brian Blake and Wave Warriors, and Brian Blake was like the master of Super 8 film. And that's what I shot on Kelly Slater in black and white because of that inspiration that I shot Super 8 and had a water housing and, going out in the waves and, getting annihilated by 15-foot waves at Cloudbreak, Fiji, and all that kind of stuff. But what were you shooting on back then? Because you were comparing video to film.
Yeah, so I was shooting on video. It was a Hi8 camera, which is not the same as it's not the same as Super 8 or any film style. It's a digital tape, and it's they don't make them nowadays. I show my kids, VHS and like Hi8s, and they don't get it.
I got a
Well,
question.
see, John,
And Dana has the same question. How many times did you rewind the high 8 and you got a glitch that you didn't have?
Yeah, there, like I only let the surfers watch their footage once due to the fact that I
Yep.
was stressed that I would get a
I
glitch.
never let them watch it. I
Yeah.
never
Yeah.
let them watch it ever.
We
Like,
just
see, back in the
transferred
day,
to the cam and didn't watch it again because it would glitch.
well, like
Yeah.
our John and I were kind of like, I did the whole video side, and John would do the film side. So our mix would be like, he'd be like film guy, then I do the 360 video of everything, and I always did all the the progression of all the onboards and
And I would
how to
always
cam.
tell Dana, don't rewind that thing. We need to transfer that to beta
Yeah, well,
because we can't
that came all the way through all the cameras. It was always, and it's funny because now now we're doing some of these documentary projects. I got just suitcases and suitcases of DV tapes, and they're all sealed.
Yeah.
They've been ADVs. They've been transferred once, never looked at, and they're all sealed. So now I'm actually going not back to betas, going back to the OG stuff and retransferring in from that, which is kind of funny.
Weirdly, those ones held up over 30 years, where a lot of my drives didn't. And a lot of my drives I'm not able to open from the next sort of generation of filming. And where my tapes, that when I shot on tape, it actually is still good. But like I still have all my tapes in my thing, but it's completely unorganized and just a mess. But I used to show the surfers the footage to have them competitive with each other so that they would know roughly the level they need to get to. And I would lean heavy on Kelly's footage and I would only show it to him once, or we'd all watch it together. Ideally was the dream scenario. And I would just show them what Kelly's doing so that Machado and Dorian and all these other pro surfers could catch up.
Yeah. What did you transfer onto to edit? How did you edit back in 1991?
Yeah, it was a linear editing and I would transfer to beta, SP, and
That's what we
then
did. Yeah.
Yeah.
and then edit beta to beta on it. But it was like tricky back then because I was
Yeah.
trying to get footage to the last minute, and so I was editing a master movie and sort of lay down the tracks, the music, and then
Yeah.
sort of fill in as they came. But if I wanted to, I could never shorten it if they didn't get enough footage. So it left me in a vulnerable spot if the guys didn't deliver on some of their segments. And there's a couple of parts that I still like notice where I would have shortened it in today's world. I would just have cut out at 30 seconds.
Yeah.
But
Well,
I
now we
think
can move things around. Linear
yeah, exactly.
is a whole different way of editing. Yeah.
like I learned, John taught me how to edit when we started, obviously through all the Crusty series, and everything was linear. And when all these different systems started coming out, we would run 2 bays, and I'd try to work over here this guy, we would go back and forth. And I find that like when you're going linear and you're building a movie that you don't want to go back and replace, so you're always going forward and not lose generations. But even when you're looking for a shot, you get to relive that whole day looking for the shot. So you're telling more of a story of when now with a computer, people throw a fucking song down and they just look at it and they go, oh, here's a bunch of peaks, and fucking they throw their big shots at the peaks, and they just like throwing up like a recipe, and then they look at it. And to me, it's like you're not even building, the future people. Like it's different, or in my opinion.
Yeah.
But what do you think?
Yeah, I remember each person had like a 3-minute segment, and they would spend a year and a half filming for it. And so each wave and each beat was really like months was spent on these edits to match the cymbal noise with the top turn so that the spray was aligned with that. And then it was like a flow of keeping this session together, and then the next session in the same outfit would be to this breakdown of the song. It was really like there was an art form and also a formula to it in a way, but it was very meticulous and interactive with the surfers. I brought them in on that side. They wouldn't be able to see other people's segments, but they would be able to see their segment and really own it and feel good about their waves used.
Hey Taylor,
we
uh, I got a question for you. How important is it as filmmakers, as we are, is music?
Yeah, like I used to say it's 50% of the film, but I would say it's probably not that high. It's probably 40%, but it's a lot. Um, Generally, it depends on the style of movie you're doing, but like my previous stuff with like the punk rock and that side of it, it
Uh-huh.
was the energy. It was trying to find a song that wasn't on the radio so that it had like your first impression was connected to that footage. And then as my filmmaking probably progressed and as it went away from that style, it just became super important to relay the emotion of the filmmaking and
Absolutely.
the film itself. And so it went
Yeah.
from being the energy and sort of like a music video style to actual like emotive telling the story without words.
Tell people, and I could tell it myself, but how cool is it when you do all that filming? Like you're saying, each guy that you're filming with, and you're going to give them a 3-minute part, and you've been filming for like a year. And how important is that to pick that right song to edit those particular pieces? Because you've been filming for a whole year with this particular, like Kelly Slater or Machado or whoever's part that's going to be. Did the athletes have a say in that song, or you picked that?
I would pick it, and that was sort of where the filmmaker side of it, I would sort of like own that part, but I wanted them to buy in on it and be excited by their song. A lot
Yeah,
of times, Kelly in particular, he was into, you know, mellower music back then and wanted some different styles. And it just didn't really fit with his surfing. My theory was like the surfing you want it to feel energized and feel faster than it is, and not slow down. It's really the whole end goal was to make them seem like the best surfer out there. And so that led over filmmaking, composition, lighting, all these things that I would now fight harder for. But in the earlier days, it was all about progression and performance and making them look as good as possible. And so I kept that sort of going for those 90s for sure.
and
dude,
tell people
that's
how
well
cool.
said. Hang on, let me chime in for a minute because like
Yeah, go ahead.
we went through this. Like when I met John in the snowboard industry, I wasn't a filmer. I was a professional snowboarder. So the first snowboard movie, we just came off of I don't know what a different snowboard film, and we went out and with John and the ideas and the whole filmmaking. Like I would actually build, the little skits and come up with funny ideas, and we do the little like get more involved than just hey, I'm just another athlete. But at the same time, after a year of filming and your whole career's like even in those early days, what are you going to look like in the film? What's he going to edit you to? Not we didn't give a fuck about songs. It was about is he going to make me look stupid? Is he going to make me look good? I mean, even back in the day, early days of the moto, like I carried that through because after years of us as, all our other athletes too, and of course we get the films and we'd be stoked. And there's always that one shot, like as an athlete, you're like, oh, okay, he could have slow moed it or could have done this, but you can't do that with every athlete. Like we invited a lot of athletes into our studio, but editing only goes so far in our studio with them. But the whole concept was when John and I started actually editing like Crusty and the dirt bike films, everything that ever was in the snowboarding for me, I carried that same formula into every single rider, every movement, every look. You got to make him fucking like Seth. He crashed the shit out of stuff, but he was fucking smooth and he looked cool and he made the guy look like a fucking hero, even though he was fucking just nut guy. And the progression of, you know, because in snowboarding, fuck, we rode snowboards down hills and jumped off cliffs. We had to do other shit, make ourselves look cool. Snowboarding back then was, I guess we did cool shit, but that whole formula, and I find that like the new age of editing, everything's so like just nowadays. It's kind of like, you know, you that feeling, all that, it kind of gets missed. Nobody would spend a month editing a fucking segment.
Well,
We did.
I can give you one example of music.
No, you don't need to remind me of shit. I know we would spend the whole summer.
I'm talking to Taylor here. Ragdoll and that music from Sean Farmer put to Seth after filming that guy for a whole year and putting Ragdoll, and it just made that segment, you know.
Oh, everything.
You probably have that, you know, in your movies where you had a particular song, particular athlete, and it resonates, you know, with your audience.
Hey, it's like you said with the wave, when the wave and the splash hits the cymbal. I've found that if you edit it right, you can have grandma sitting there rocking out to Rob Zombie because they're watching the visual and it grooves with the music, and they don't realize that they're doing this shit to Rob Zombie. But if it's the cymbals hitting every splash and all that, it's like making, you know, music to a visual with an orchestra. You know what I mean? And that's all in, you know, your own theory that you described, I would say, right, Free Doggy?
Yeah.
It's kind of like what we've always do.
I do have, you know, all kinds of generations of people, and they look, and the music's just making them do that. Like, wow, why am I liking this? I've never seen this before. Yeah, you do have grandma rocking out, you know. I have a question.
Yeah, I think
Taylor. Do you have
just to
a
finish,
particular favorite movie that you've made over all these years?
yeah, well, to also add on to the music side of it, I think it's important that the filmmaker loves the song. So because you're listening to it probably for 2 weeks straight, where the athlete's probably popping in here and there, but the editor is just living that song and knows every inch of it inside and out, and it becomes numbing in that edit process where you sort of don't realize if it's any good anymore. The footage, the music, all of it, because you're so close to it that it's really tricky to sort of know what your confidence starts to go away from it, because you're like, I thought this was good, but now that I've sat here for this long with it, maybe it's not that good, but it really is. But you're just sort of too encompassing with it. So yeah,
love it.
Yeah, but you have to love it to begin with, because you're going to sit with it for a month straight, if not
And I
more.
think your word numb. You become
you become numb to it.
because as editors, we watch it backwards and forwards and backwards and forwards, and we're trying to hit that. You know,
it's so true though. It's so true. Like we would say, like our studio was in Malibu, and I'd ride in from fucking Huntington, and we would just throw gnarly sessions, you know, for days at a time, and then I'd come home and die and then go back. But we would start almost every session off with just fucking hitting the fucking music on kill and just ringing your head with a song. Like, remember blowing the studio out with that shit, Johnny? And it's just like,
we had luckily we had a ranch in at Zuma Beach, and it was 2-acre property, so we could blast our music at 3 in the morning and nobody could hear us. The only ones that could hear us was the coyotes, and me and Dana shot those things with soft pellet guns.
Yeah, it was
just to quiet those guys up. Yeah,
those were the days.
Those were our neighbors, coyotes. Yeah.
Real quick before I answer your other question, you know, John, how do you get hooked up with the black and white sort of thing with Wooly and all that, or how did that come into fruition?
Yeah, so I went to Pepperdine University in Malibu, and I was on the golf team originally, and I thought, you know what, this is too boring. I'm going on the surf team, and I met Richard Wolcott on the surf team, along with another cast of characters. And so I went through that, and I was doing kind of educating myself in editing and filming and stuff like that in college. And I'd make these little surf movies. And Wooly was a part of that. So when Richard Wolcott got a job under Danny Kwok over there and Bob McKnight at Quicksilver, he said, "Hey, my friend John Freeman, he does, really cool, photography, editing, and this and that. He makes, cool movies." They wanted to go with Brian Blake and Herbie. And they called me in and they said, "Okay, dude, can you, film in the water?" I was like, "Yep." "Do you have cameras?" "Yep." "Do you can you film like something, because we got a new kid coming in and his name is Kelly Slater." I didn't have shit. I didn't have cameras. I didn't have editing equipment. I didn't have nothing. I just said yes to every question. And so we went down, and Kelly, that's when we had all the funny stuff at Wooly's house there in Newport. And we were getting ready for that Trestles contest. And that's, how do you like my shorts and this and that? Do you like breakfast? Do you like teachers? And so we were just clowning around. We actually slept on Wooly's floor the night before, I think, the final. And we were sleeping in cat poop on Richard Wolcott's floor that morning. And that's where we were filming that whole thing, sleeping in cat poop at Richard Wolcott's house. And it was the Giddings that were his roommates. It was Greg Giddings and David Giddings were the roommates back then. So he wins that competition, and I get called back in, and they're like, "This isn't just a demo anymore. Are you guys ready to travel the world? And we're going to make a film out of this thing." And I was like, "Yep." Wooly's like, "Yep." Kelly's going, "Yep." And that's when we got sent out to Tavarua Island in Fiji. And that's kind of where the film kept progressing from there. And then when we got back from that, it's like, okay, now we got a film. Are you guys ready to go to Hawaii? Because we want to test the kid at like Pipeline and all that kind of stuff. So we were on a whirlwind. And I remember me and Wooly just putting notes together after Fiji. And when we got back, they're like, "Okay, you're going to Hawaii, but we're going to show this film like January 1 or something like that." And I looked at Wooly like, "Are you fucking kidding me? We're going to make this film like right after we get back from all these, world travels." Usually, that'd take us what, a couple of months, right, Taylor? To
Yeah,
something like that. No, we did it in 1 week. We edited that movie like in 1 week. No sleep. I'm not going to say how that process went, but there was no sleep. Let's put it that way. For one entire week, we were dead at the end of that project. Yeah.
I think I was at the premiere. It was at the San Diego trade show.
I think it was, yes.
Yeah.
And I think I was there. It was at like a hotel.
Yeah. I was probably ready, and Wooly was ready to do a face plant. We were done. Like,
yeah,
at the door. There's our film. We're done.
It's
Did
funny.
you-
Filmmakers' ending of their film. We're never done. There's always something that we want to tweak, in the end, but you got to let your film go at some point, right?
every premiere we've ever done is the same thing. Like the last week, it's been like we're just still doing the opening, something's not done, and everybody's name's wrong. Everybody's pissed because their credit was wrong, and Remember, we had Muck used to sleep on our floor until we were done editing, and I go and shoot him with the airsoft gun. Get up, you can edit now. Like,
And of course, you know Mike from Lost.
Yep.
yeah,
He used to sleep
good
on
old
Yeah.
days. And we'd give him from like midnight to 8 in the morning, you know, to edit what's really going wrong? That film.
Mm.
Yeah.
You know, it's crazy. Is the nowadays it's like do people like the attention spans are so short nowadays, you know, for people to like really to suck people into.
Well, I think it's internet. That's people
Well,
have
yeah,
instant access to Instagram and all
Yeah.
that stuff. Yeah, something
I
happens
think
today, you're gonna see it in like 5 minutes. Yeah.
it's tough.
well,
It's tough for the athletes nowadays because they have to be in charge of their own productions of content for their Instagram, and
Yeah.
it's so much better looking to have someone else edit it and make them look cool than them trying to sell themselves as being cool. And so they're in a sort of a weird spot. But I would say like my earlier films was sort of like just Instagram. It were home movies, you know, like it was like, you know, in that sort of vein. Yeah, just trying to be like the stuff that happens on the road.
Yeah.
yeah.
So back
This
to the
is-
question now. What is your favorite movie that you've ever made in your life?
Yeah, I think like in you know, Momentum was the one that sort of allowed me to drop out of college and really have this lifestyle and travel and um it that has to be in that conversation. But I really think like as you guys know, as filmmakers, it's one thing to do it once, and it's tough to sort of like and you can repeat that over and over again, and I consider that once still. Like Momentum 1, Momentum 2, Good Times, all those ones are the same, you know, they're one formula. And to
yeah,
recreate your film style and do something else is the real challenge. And so for me, like I would put like Sipping Jet Streams in that conversation because I really had to reinvent myself in the style. I actually shot film, mellow music, really sort of melancholy sort of feel to it, and it's probably like the anti what I would have liked when I was 18 making Momentum. It would have been the opposite, and it would have been the guys I would have been like, those guys are lame, kind of videos. And but like it you know, as I got to that stage, that's what my interest was, and that's what I wanted to sort of watch and make. And so for me, that one sort of fits in that criteria because it extended my career, one, but it also sort of freed me up from my previous success.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. What year did Slipping
That was
come out?
2001 is when 2001 when
2001.
Sipping Jet Streams came out. Yeah.
Yeah. And I noticed that you did a lot with that particular film where you started getting creative with like a picture book that comes with it, maybe a soundtrack with it.
Yeah.
Was that kind of
Yeah.
the film that you started doing that with?
Yeah, like as you know, that film was like meant to be like we were gonna do photos, art gallery sort of style to it, trying to elevate the space a little bit.
Yeah.
And you know, we had bands play, we had art gallery, coffee table book, the movie itself. It came in a nice box set. But then, like later, like even my last film, which was probably now a little while ago, maybe 6 years ago, 7 years ago,
Uh-huh.
I'm frustrated by how we consume content on, you know, online, and how fast paced we are with it. So I try to create little events to extend that life of the project. And so I'll
Yeah.
do sort of like the same sort of art gallery feeling maybe in New York with a whole bunch of activations, whether it's virtual reality or boards from the event that are painted by artists. So they're there in that space. Then that'll move to a theatrical run. and then I'll move to the home move or online side of it to just try to give it a little bit of extended life.
Yeah.
And that side of it, I now like really sort of crave that sort of like theatrical experiences where we sort of sit in a theater and all share a moment together. And yeah, so I still do those nowadays with a little festival I do in Encinitas.
How did you get your initial? You asked me the question how I did Kelly Slater in black and white, and I was hired by Quicksilver. How did you get your funding? As you said, you dropped out of college and you made a lifestyle out of filmmaking. How did you get?
Yeah, like back then it was Quicksilver, Rip Curl, and Billabong were the only ones making films in the surf space, and so
Yeah.
I knew that that was really the avenue to probably go towards, and so I borrowed I think $4,000 from my parents, and went to Hawaii and bought a van and slept in it and just really sort of just was living on the North Shore for 6 months and just filming everything that sort of happened in front of me, and then came back and mixed that with California footage and made a movie. And that the idea of going into it was I'm going to use my name almost as like a brand to sort of use that to later sell to Billabong or Rip Curl to have work for them. But the movie Momentum took off so much that I was able to just sort of use the money from that one into the next one and sort of self-fund all my projects. And I created my own distribution and just sort of did it all myself. It was definitely a DIY sort of scenario. So yeah,
Yeah.
Probably a learning curve, I imagine.
Four
a lot of
thousand
learning
dollars
curve.
back then was like $1 million to me.
Right?
It felt like it.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah. Oh yeah.
Well, yeah,
Um,
like when our first Crusty started, giving us the ability to self-fund
You
ourselves.
should go back another step, Dana, because after I did black and white and I met you and I was up there snowboarding and I fell in love with snowboarding. It was so awesome. And Dana brought me into Kemper snowboards. And I sold him the idea after coming off the Kelly Slater project that I want to make snowboard films. I think they gave me like $10,000, and I thought
Yeah.
I'm a millionaire. I'm a millionaire.
Well, I just come off of a
You know,
I just came off of a different film. We were living in Tahoe, and I didn't move up, and they started filming another movie. So I was like, okay. When I met John, it's like we created our whole SoCal crew of not only writers and filmmakers. Well, writers we already had, but we were already on that mission, and it kind of created the whole thing we were today. And it's kind of been a cool mix for us because, like I say, when we do our films, we get that mix of the filmmaker, the writer, the athlete, and we look at it from all different sides, I guess you would say. Like me and John are like fucking salt and pepper in the editing room, but
yeah.
it's good. It's good. So what do you think about the wave pools? How sick the wave pools are now?
Yeah, the wave pool technology, I've surfed most of them now. There's maybe one in northern Australia that I haven't surfed, but I've surfed all the other ones, and it's such a great experience. It's like the funnest day you'll have because you're like with your friends and you're just chilling at these pools and you just catch unlimited waves. But in the filmmaking context, I think it's sort of perceived as a lesser clip when it comes from a wave pool, and it's an interesting dynamic because it almost just it's like cheating in a way because it's
Well,
you
I'm
constantly
just thinking like it just not necessarily filming, but just the sense of being friends with Kelly and just that whole concept. I find that just super awesome, and like every time I go to Vegas, the Buffalo Bills hotel with the roller coaster and all that. Well, we always raise trucks out of there, and it's always been like the fun hotel, and they even have like a truck there and stuff. And all the people go UTVing out of there, and I keep looking at that thing, and I'm like, man, if you put a wave park there, especially now you got the tequila company, you need a casino. Boom, you theme the whole casino out like the SoCal fun place where people could actually go stay in a casino, bring their UTVs and dirt bikes and go ride. They can go surfing. They could, you have the arcade, the roller coaster. They theme the whole fucking place out. But then people could fly to Vegas from all around the world and actually surf a world class wave in Las Vegas.
Yeah,
How's
I
that?
don't want to speak out of turn, but there's might be something coming.
All right. Well, Buffalo Bills, but it's super common.
I'll connect the dots.
Yeah, Mandalay Bay had the somewhat of a thing, but not a wave pool.
Well, see, we do there's a lake bed right there. We do the off road. Like, I'm friends with the Herps, and they have the next casino over, and I'm like, man, it's a perfect thing to just make this like everything you would see as a surfer, but also off road.
I think Taylor's got a little secret in his head. I can see it brewing.
All right, well, we'll leave it at that. And what about the tequila? Tell us about the tequila, John.
How do you go from filmmaker to making your own tequila brand?
Yeah, that's probably the trickiest journey, but I'll sort of try to do it in a quicker way. I as you guys know, the DVD world slowly started disappearing, and that transition to online sales was a drastic decline. And so I had a young family, two daughters, and it was really sort of like thinking about how can I provide for them. And so I started moving into making commercials. And so I started making commercials for Corona beer in Australia, and those went so well that they brought me in as a creative director for them. And we grew that brand like 20% every year, and it became their third biggest market in the world. And for that size population, it's pretty impressive on revenue size. And from there, I started becoming a creative director for a bunch of brands, like probably 4 or 5 brands, and I was advising them and creating their look and feel, and they'd give me like a small percentage of the companies in payment. And I just realized that the people behind these brands that I was doing it for didn't really care about the ethos that I was sort of laying out. It was more a sales tool for them and a marketing tool. And so for me, it was like, okay, I'm going to just create my own thing that I believe in instead of doing it for these other people, and do it from top to bottom how I think a brand should be built. It should be sustainable. It should be look nice. It should be the best quality. It should have a give back part of it. It should bring the community together. It should sort of like add value to the world compared to just taking. And so I just spent like a couple years really researching it and seeing what's possible. And then in 2019, right before COVID, I launched Solento Organic Tequila, and it's been a wild learning curve since. I'm the CEO, and a lot of learnings with it, but also, my strength's more on the marketing side of it than sales.
How did you find a place to actually grow the agave or whatever the place that you're trying? I assume in Mexico.
Yeah, so I went down to Mexico for a couple months and really started understanding what that logistic was. And the family that I met, they've been doing it for 3 generations. They own their own farm, and they were very hesitant on working with somebody from California. But when I explained that I was going to be going to Australia, that got them excited and they wanted to work with me at that stage, because I was looking at the Corona sales for Australia going, if I could just do 1% of that with a tequila, I'll be okay. And so I was really focused at that. And then in the end, a lot of tequila brands are only about how it's made and not really a tone. And I'm sort of bringing in that sort of action sports tone of like, how do you build a brand? How do you make a brand cool? How do you build a community around that brand and not just the liquid and how it's made? That's like equivalent of like a clothing company just talking about how they sew and where they get their fabrics compared to, like the style and the tone behind it. So yeah, it sort of, there's a lot of things that carry over that like tequila's never played with. Um, Beer companies more play in that space. It's similar to what we're probably used to in the action sports, but
Uh-huh.
tequila is all about like heritage and how process is made. And so for me, I'm bringing in my interest into it. We do this film festival down in Encinitas. It's I actually had black and white show there one night with Richard and Kelly on stage, and we talked about the film then. And
I
it's
wasn't there.
like it's no, you weren't there. um,
Come on, guy.
um, but yeah, the idea is like to sort of add value to wherever we're sort of at, and that's where the festival even came from. And it's like combining all my interests into one space.
What does Solento mean for the people?
It's a made up word. It means slow sun.
Slow sun.
Soul and Lento, and I just combined them, and then I created the whole brand based off that sort of yellow of the sun,
Yeah.
and the ridges in the bottles are meant to be sun rays, and it's all sort of like that tone of that name. Like I imagine the way you consume it, you should be like sipping it and enjoying, like a slowed down moment.
Yeah.
And then even the agaves growing in the sun in Mexico, being there for 7 years, just in the slow Mexican sun, it sort of fits on a
So in
multi way.
a thesaurus, it would be like you're just chilling.
That's right. It's meant to be
That's
a
cool.
chilled environment. The idea is like we're in such a fast-paced world that we're rushing and we're always thinking about our future and our sort of like what's next, and we're on our phone and we're sort of doing that. It's like
Too fast
let's
for
just be
our own good.
present.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's be present, have a sip of tequila, enjoy that with somebody. And when I think about like tequila, that's how I consume it. I'm either like enjoying a sunset and doing it solo, or I'm like sharing a moment with somebody that I want to be hanging out with.
Drinking
That's
tequila
awesome.
fast is dangerous anyway.
I must confess that John knows that I actually don't drink as long as he's known me. I'm like the non-drinker, the weirdo in the bunch. But when all these like clowns and dirt bike guys we've hung out with and toured with, the poke stick of drink. To me, the only time I ever do drink, it's called tequila night, and then they usually don't ever ask me to drink again. So that's kind of like my secret weapon is tequila night, and which I can drink tequila, but a lot of shit breaks. It's not,
Yeah, you're drinking it too fast. It sounds like.
Yeah,
yeah, I don't know what the
exactly.
mellow side is. I think Clint might have accidentally stumbled into a tequila night with me.
I like a nice Cadillac margarita. That's what I like.
Yeah, like
With your tequila, my friend.
oh, thank you,
Yes.
thank you. Yeah,
And who's involved with you? Is Kelly Slater involved with the tequila company that you started?
Yeah, like it's I'm the founder. I sort of came up with the concept and created it all from full circle. But then I reached out to my friends to invest, and we got Kelly and Rob invested. Mark McMorris, he's involved.
Cool.
Tony Hawk's
When you
involved.
say Rob, you're talking about Rob Machado.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, Rob Machado.
Yeah.
And then we have Ed Norton invested and Spike Jones.
Uh-huh.
And then Jimmy Butler from Miami Heat, he invested as well. So it's got like a nice sort of diverse crew that are multi interests in different sports and different
And you
sort of
mentioned
creative
Tony
outlets.
Hawk as well.
Tony Hawk's involved, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Action sports
Yeah.
tequila, my friends. Yes.
Yeah.
It's the common thread with a lot of them are like Tony Hawk and Kelly Slater. You know, they're now in their 50s. They're still doing it. They treat their body right, and so it's more of somebody that wants to have a drink but still be active the next day is sort of the common theme on the investors. But we don't use them front and center. They're behind the scenes and not part of the brand, forward facing.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, it's cool. That's cool.
Is that
I feel like
is that your main job these days? Running the
Yeah, it's most of my job nowadays. I do every so often do a National Geographic's film. I created a series called Save This, and then you add the animal after it. So the first one was Save This Rhino, and then the second one was Save This Shark. And what we do is we bring in an athlete, like Save This Rhino. We brought in a cricket player, and that cricket player was sort of the star in asking the questions that the everyday person would ask, but then they bring their audience to it. And then the second one, we used Mick Fanning because he had an incident with a shark, and it was a sort of an interesting potential arc for a story to have him deal
tell
with
people about that. That's pretty gnarly. In a
yeah. So
competition. Yeah.
so Mick Fanning was leading the world title race, and he was surfing in a competition in Jeffreys Bay during the final heat,
South Africa.
and it was in South Africa, and it was right, before he even caught a wave. It was like 5 minutes into the finals. A great white came up and bumped his board, got tangled up with him, and sort of like um, he had multiple interactions with him. The shark bumped him in the chest. He hit it. It was sort of this wild interaction, but to the viewer, like he disappeared, went underwater, and we didn't know if he was alive or dead. And it was just all live stream. And so it was pretty traumatic for a lot of people, including Mick, but all the viewers that watched it, it was quite a heavy thing to see real time. And, he came back from that. I'm close friends with Mick. He came back from that with all of the sort of spotlight on him, but also a lot of trauma from it. He had nightmares from it, and he was really dealing with a lot of, you know, whatever the right word is, just some psychological struggles from that situation. And he didn't want to really go back in the water right away. He wanted to sort of deal with that situation. And he finally started surfing again. We all knew he would, but like he started just getting more comfortable in the water and then surfing and then back onto his elite level performance. But in his back of his mind, he has this unresolved issues with sharks. And so the idea was, let's bring that front and center and deal with that head on. And so the documentary's all about sharks. The story is like, why are there more sharks in areas? Why are there less sharks in areas? Why are there more interactions with people nowadays? What's going on in this environment? And so we brought these experts along. We went down to South Australia with experts on a boat for 2 weeks. Then we went to the Bahamas and went diving with tiger sharks and all these sort of big fish. But the way to sort of break them into this scenario was to start with the smallest sharks and then work our way up to the biggest ones. And so we were like swimming with little leopard sharks and all these smaller ones. And then we worked our way up to great hammerheads, which were 15 foot. And then we went free diving with tiger sharks that were like 15-foot tiger sharks, no cage, in Bahamas. And then from there, we went to South Australia and went 90 feet down in a cage with great whites. And through that whole thing, he was able to learn about sharks, but also like deal with a lot of his sort of baggage from that situation. And he came out better for it on the other side. And it was, the idea of it was to help save sharks from being finned and also just cold for fear factor. So yeah, it was a
Now, you
quite
lived
a
down
trip.
in Australia for quite a while, and you know, like I know, those bull sharks are kind of gnarly. They come out, they swim up into upstream, and you don't think that you're going to run into a shark swimming upstream in a river mouth, and that's where they come out. And you got those bull sharks there in Australia, and I watched a kid got eaten by one of those things, and we decided let's keep surfing because the guy was taken away on the beach. But tell us about those bull sharks in Australia.
Like we swam with some bull sharks in a cage though. I think bull sharks are the scariest ones. Um,
Yeah,
they're able to actually adapt to fresh water, and sort of some of those riverways start salt water and then they go freshwater, and
yeah, they
they're
adapt
able to adapt
to fresh water.
to that.
Yeah,
There, as I sort of dove into the sharks and really talking to the experts, like sharks are equivalent of dog breeds, and each shark is almost like a different breed of kinds of dog,
you could
and
have a
so
poodle or a pit bull, right?
yeah, like bull sharks are like a pit bull with an owner that just treats it bad, and it's really got sort of this chip on his shoulder. Where like a great white's like a wolf, they hunt in packs. They're very intelligent. They're sort of very strategic, and then like the great hammerhead is like a big Labrador, like a Great Dane or something. They're just like these sort of sensitive, big creatures, and so each one has its own sort of personalities that you really, you know, um, could sort of, it helps you sort of assess
Where's
what
the
kind of.
eyes on a hammerhead?
The
Are they?
hammerhead eyes are on this side because
They're on the side.
they
Yeah.
they're on this side, and they have a blind spot, so we had to have a post, like a stick to poke them out because we could be in their blind spot and they could be coming right towards you, and you'd have to poke them in the middle so that they don't bump into you and start chomping.
You just poke them in the
That sounds
forehead.
like fun. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's fun. That's
yeah.
real fun.
They give you like a plastic little like plumbing pipe, and you at the bottom to poke out the tigers and the hammerheads when they're there.
Well,
But you're
what if
just gently.
yeah, how about if you put as a Vegas attraction, because like how they made the whole track now where you could drive supercars and all that, like the whole attraction side of it, you put the wave pool in, and then once a week you could do like the shark experience and put some sharks in the tank and they could surf with fucking sharks and the whole deal.
Just
Yeah,
put the leopard
And
in there. They're friendly.
you use the name of the tequila, right? The slow selling could be the theme of the casino. There you go. It
yeah.
all worked out.
I like it. I like it. We'll talk after this. Your people talk to my people.
Yeah. Well, my buddies, the Terrible Herbs, they have the next casino over. They're like smashing the thing down. I keep looking at it. I'm like, man, that would be really cool. But yeah, I guess you got to dream forward to make cool shit happen, right?
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
I find the bigger the idea, the easier it is to get funding.
So you're back.
Yeah, right.
You're back in California now, full time.
Yeah, I lived overseas for 15 years, or not.
You were
all
at
of it
Lennox
overseas.
Heads, right?
Yeah, I was in that area in Australia for 6
Kind of
years.
near
I
where
was in,
Byron Bay is, but just a couple
yeah,
of states down. Yeah.
yeah, and then I was in Bali for 6 years, and then I consider New York another country, and I lived there for 6 years. So,
Country. Yeah, that's another one.
Not too much wave
yes.
time over there.
Yeah, you can get it. It's like an hour drive to New Jersey or up
Yeah.
Rockaway and all that side of it. But
Get a little storm and you get some waves. Yeah.
yeah,
Indoor,
you'll get it.
indoor park.
It just gets
Do it.
cold during the winter. You're in a lot of wetsuit. I think the coldest I surfed was like 43 degrees, and Yeah, that's freezing with a wetsuit.
I'm in New Jersey. The water's like that during the summer.
It sounds like you need you need the indoor wave park over there and you can heat it like a jacuzzi. Indoor
Yes.
heated wave park. As I get older,
Yeah.
it's all about comfort. It's about comfort, right?
I remember,
Yes.
going out in a wetsuit over here in Malibu when it's like as cold as it can possibly get, maybe in the 40s, and you come back to your car and you hide your keys like on top of the wheel or something like that, but you're shaking with trying to get your key back into the trying to open your door, to get back in your truck or your car. Yeah, and you just can't even move because you're just shivering so much after a big surf session.
The blood goes from your body to warm your chest, so it like leaves your fingers and your feet first, and then you can't control them because all the blood's keeping your chest warm.
It's like, come on, operate.
Yeah.
I got a secret
I know that.
for you, and I'm sure you probably used it. If it's freezing cold out there and you got a full wetsuit, you just pee in it. It's summer on the inside, my friend.
Yeah, that's definitely surfers all do that.
Oh yes, that's how we survive out there.
Don't they have the dry suits now? Like the dry suits, don't they keep you a lot warmer and all that stuff?
The technology on wetsuits are so much better now, where you could actually
and they're
surf
stretchy.
in.
That's the big thing.
Yeah, they're stretchy, and like I was surfing in 5 mil wetsuits, 7 mil booties, hood,
and you're
5
fighting
mil gloves.
You can't even move your arms in like 5 mil. But nowadays,
it's
stretchy.
Nowadays you can,
Yeah, but I'm a pussy in the water. I freeze my ass off. Johnny knows, and I only go left too. I don't go right.
I took Dana.
You're like
out to Point Doom, Little Doom, and I said, "You got to go right, bro." And he goes, "But I only go left." I'm like, "Good luck with that." And he goes right into the rock.
Yeah, that's like Zoolander or something.
Yeah, I'm a snowboarder. I'm not a good surfer. I could ride all day long in a t-shirt, but you put me in the water, I'm just freezing.
Took Dana to Zuma because we had the editing facility right there at Zuma Beach, and he was so stoked. He was in like a little tube, coming at me, goofy foot guy, and I just did a floater on him and squished his tube.
Yeah, fucker. Fucking guys.
I gotta switch my tube. I was just having a lot of fun there, bro.
That's funny.
So
it's
Taylor,
funny.
What's up for Taylor Steele? What's your next project that you want to tell the world about?
Yeah, we're just, it's sort of off what we were talking about before, doing the Solento surf festivals. We're doing one in Australia now, one in Florida in 2 weeks, and then one in Encinitas. So it's sort of like getting back on the road and getting that sort of surf vibe going, where we get all in a theater and hoot and sort of like really enjoy the tribe that we have. So that's sort of keeping me sort of connected to my old world, but also like pushing forward my new space. So it's a lot of fun.
How do people follow you or look up what your events are going to be?
It probably easiest is just follow me on Instagram. Just my full name, Taylor Steele, is what it is, and try to update that enough without blowing it out, because I'm not on Instagram that much. But
yeah, I'm terrible.
But I try to keep it up to speed. If something's interesting going on, I'll
Solento, the slow Solento Tequila.
Yeah.
Yeah, now I'm gonna look down. I'll draw graphics of the casino, and when I drive by there, I'll find a spot for you guys. I like that concept.
Perfect.
We'll have to talk. It's so good. Well, it's awesome, man. Appreciate you coming on our podcast. It's been a while, man.
This is great. You guys are legends. So thanks for having me on. It's a throwback to when we were probably hanging out at trade shows back in the day.
And we did a a whole thing with AMC theaters with you. What was that called? Adrenaline series, where we had,
Adrenaline
I
series,
think, a
yeah.
Crusty movie. You had one of the Momentum movies. I think Tony Hawk was coming out with The End back then,
Yeah.
and probably had maybe Teton Gravity might have been there. Some of the skier guys, maybe Mac Dog in snowboarding.
Yeah.
That was pretty
Hey,
cool.
Yeah.
real quick,
And-
as a filmmaker, like the the way you laid out the concept of making a film and you know the linear editing, the whole just the thought of the athlete, it's like, man, I've been longing to hear somebody else with that train of thought for years as an editor. And it's like it's awesome. That's to me, that's just impressive. It's impressive to have that train of thought about how to I guess the formula or the concept of the formula, you know what I mean? Not that any formula is right or wrong, but that's cool. Hats off to
Yeah.
that one.
We got a couple of
I
filmmakers
think
talking back and forth with their inside notes that people don't know about.
That's all right though.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like
Yeah.
it's well noted. So there you go. We'll leave it at that.
Yeah, I think the lesson from that is when you sort of, as a filmmaker, put yourself secondary to the athletes and make them look good, then it
Yeah.
moves the whole space forward, and they'll bring you along on the journey, and that's what happened with me.
Yeah, exactly.
What
It's like
happened to me? Same journey.
my concept was like, you know, the snowboarding was like, okay, that was being in front of the lens and making the films. Like now it's time to be behind the lens and learning, helping what you've learned through your craft. And you could look at how many athletes, like how many people did you create in the industry that became fucking rock stars, and you know, some of them are still with you, some would go off and do this, that. They all become their own brands now, but you become this like stepping stone. And you know, a lot of them don't realize it, but
Yeah,
you
I
know,
think
in
that's a
reality,
cool platform that we have as filmmakers, that we can bring characters to life. We can bring these athletes into a platform where they can showcase themselves. It's not a contest. It's not winning something, but it's an expression. And we bring that into our films. And I think that's what you were kind of talking about, where you made a segment and you filmed a guy for an entire year and he gets 3 minutes of glory. But that 3 minutes, he's been looking forward to that 3 minutes for an entire year, and that song that you're going to put to him and all that. And he has that glory for that particular moment. And I don't know about you, but when I show a film, I like to look around the room. I don't look at my film. I like to read the audience and see their reactions. Are they laughing, crying? Are they, you know, in a wow moment? That kind of thing. You probably do the same thing, I'm sure.
Yeah, I feel like when I watch my movies in a crowd, I'm watching it with their eyes, and I'm seeing all of the mistakes, and flow of it all, but also seeing it fresh again. Where in the edit bay, it was not fresh, and it was very numbing, and just like it all felt just mediocre. But then when I'm watching it with a crowd, it all sort of elevates again, and it's all exciting. You know, when I think about sort of all of us on this call, like we lived in a beautiful time when people would watch our films for months and maybe even years and really enjoyed it and soaked it in. And nowadays filmmakers, they watch a film on YouTube and they're already on to the next one right after that, and it's forgotten about. And so there's a deep connection with our fan base that a lot of filmmakers will never experience because of that that interaction that they have with our films for over a long time.
that's true. That's true. Well, it's, I think our community is like, I think our community is a special niche community, you know, going back from snowboarding, surfing, skating, you know, dirt bikes, all the intertwined of, you know, like when we were snowboarding for OP, we got all intertwined with all the surfers, you know, and vice versa, and you know, for I imagine each of us, you know, and I think it was a lot different back then. Now everybody, like you say, as an athlete, is instantly their own brand and their own film network, and you know what I mean. It's not like nobody cares about a bigger movement. A lot of it's about individuality, I guess. It seems like nowadays, you know.
I had an electrician come over to work on the house the other day, and I gave him a DVD, and he goes, "Where am I supposed to play that?" He goes, "You might as well just
Yeah.
play that because I don't have that, whatever that plays on." I was like, "Really? You don't even have a DVD player?" He goes, "No, bro.
Yeah.
It's all streaming." Yeah.
I showed my daughter's friends. I'm like, do you know what this is? And they're like, yeah, I know what that is. We used to play music from our car with those things. And I'm like, no, this is a
A CD.
DVD.
Yeah.
Oh, it's too much.
A VHS, they think that's like a PlayStation or something.
They didn't even they couldn't comprehend that VHS tape.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
VHS and
it's
DVD, and now we're streaming. So
You know, the
Yeah.
funny thing is my daughter went through film, and her crew, they do, you know, freelance film work in Hollywood and LA and all kinds of different shit. But they're into this whole trend of like going back and getting the old school still cameras and video cameras and high 8 cameras. Like we were visiting them last year over their house, and she threw in, had TV going with a VHS going, and threw in Creatures of Habit. And I'm like, I got sucked into the old movie. I'm like, fuck, we were actually pretty good fucking snowboarders back then. I was tripping. But there's like this niche where they're reliving all that old technology, and that's kind of cool, you know, and their eyes, they kind of did that.
Taylor,
And
back in the VHS days, I remember when we came out with like Creatures of Habit and then Crusty, but they would rewind the thing so many times, and they'd call me and say, "Is there any way I could get another one? Because my friend borrowed it and it got tangled in his, you know, VHS player." And you know, I'm sure you went through that whole thing where, you know, people are like, "I rewound it too many times and the tape breaks," you know, and it's
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a glitch over somebody's section or something like that. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah.
too
Or
much.
you're pulling the thing out and you just have the whole VHS tape coming out and it's stuck on the pinch rollers in there, you know?
Yeah,
Uh,
I've had that with the high 8 tapes with good footage on it where it's just like
Got stuck.
stuck in the machine.
Yeah, you're just pulling it out, trying to put
Yeah.
it back into the
Yeah, like find it, like it's like clicky noise and you just sort
oh
of
yeah.
like
Click, click. Yeah.
yeah.
it's so funny. I still have so many high 8 tapes too. It's like I can't even. I've been transferring the DV cam tapes,
And
but
don't rewind them, D.
You'll get a glitch.
You're gonna get
no,
the fuck out.
all that shit's been sealed for 20 years, 20 something
Yeah.
years since we originally shot it. You know what I mean? Right in the.
We just play it one time and put it on digital.
Well, I've been digging it out for that Adam Barker for the Emic project. And it's like, man, it's funny because I can look at a tape and read just a couple lines of what it says on it, and it's, you know, our shit was pretty scribbly back then, but you could almost relive what you shot when you see a tape that you shot 20 years ago and you read the label. You could relive that fucking tape in your mind, and it's like, it's kind of cool. It's like this whole digging in this stuff is, it's a lot, but it's you come across some funny shit. You're like, oh fuck, I remember that day.
Yeah.
But, man,
Now we have a reason to go back and do these things.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's funny like I put it to like how important it was to you back then when you were filming it. And like during those early days when you're younger and you don't probably no family, and it's like making videos is your number one deal. There's a weight to it and importance to it that is just, it all means so much. At least it did to me. And so when I look at those tapes, I remember those clips. I remember that session. I remember the waves I missed. I remember the waves that, were the star waves on that tape. So it's like without even putting it in. So
Yeah.
I relate to that. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I was like, I was come across the tape. Like, for instance, John, I came across it said Dallas on it. So when we went with the McGrath Still Roots film, we rode Harleys around Dallas, and then it said Pimp and Whore. So it goes from with McGrath and all them at a Supercross to one of the Pimp and Whore parties. I'm like, oh, you look at a tape like that.
What are
You're
you
like,
gonna
okay,
find on that tape?
yeah, what are you gonna find there?
We call that the
But it's like,
X-Files.
yeah, I guess you got to be careful when you're going through that stuff. But man, dude, it's been a cool podcast. I guess we could talk all day long about this shit. But when we our next project is Legends of Film, Taylor, we're gonna, obviously we'd love to come do some stuff with you and get this film, our kind of documentary about all the filmmakers. I think would be kind of cool because it's showing that relationship between how you make an athlete and the athlete actually makes you. So there's this certain bond and relationship with a few different guys. And I think it'll be a cool story to find the market that'll sit down and
Look what happened
watch
to
that.
Damon. He was a professional snowboarder, and I made him into a filmmaker.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
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 That does
Yeah.
happen.
Yeah.
Something like that.
I'm down 100% whenever you guys want to do something. I have all the rights to my movies, and so 100% down to be a part of whatever you guys are doing.
Yeah, no, it'll be exciting. I think it'll be a fun film to make, and hopefully it'll be something that like you're saying, we could get everybody together because everybody, between athletes and filmmakers, and even leave something behind that really educates the the kids nowadays because they're so it's funny though because at the same time you see your kid on YouTube watching just weird ass shit like how the other guy plays the video game or this or that so it's a weird balance at what they're interested in. It's like, well, fuck, why are you watching a guy play a video game? Why don't you just play the fucking video game?
They watch kids open presents, dude.
Yeah. Well, I'm like, why can't you just play the fucking game? Don't watch somebody play the fucking game. I'm like, what the fuck? But
And the next time we have a black and white party,
You're invited,
I
100%.
gotta go.
Yes.
I
Yes.
can
This
talk
was
with
a couple
you
years ago.
on that film. Oh yeah.
Yeah. Definitely.
Well,
Next time we do it, we'll do it at the 30-year anniversary or
There we go.
40
That's
year.
good. Yeah.
yeah, when you got something going down local, maybe we'll come check out your one of your competitions or something. That'd be cool.
Yes, 100%. 100%. Yeah, it's a beach day, music. You guys would vibe on it. So yeah, next September, come on down.
And you got to
Okay.
send me another bottle of that tequila, my friend.
I will. We'll do some tasting.
Yeah.
Perfect.
All righty,
Oh,
guys. I have to run, but it was
Yeah.
great catching up with you guys. Super inspiring.
Appreciate you coming on.
Stoked to have you on our
Yeah.
podcast. It's been a
Yeah,
while.
that's awesome.
We haven't seen you in a long time.
Yep, we all look the same, so it's great.
We're all doing the
Face for
same thing.
radio.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's keep rocking and rolling.
The world, my friend.
Awesome.
All right, well, thank you for coming on, and we'll throw a tequila down when we meet again.
Sounds
And,
good.
Yes,
sounds-
hopefully not on tequila night, but we'll be catching up soon.
We'll slow
Yeah,
down.
no, I'll save my bottle. I'll save mine on the shelf. I'll
Sun
put it in the
rising
cabinet.
slow, D.
That's
Yeah.
right. That's right.
No, I'm gonna have to sign it. So then when you get the big casino and all that, we'll be like, hey, fuck, remember that bottle you signed?